I came home for Christmas, and the first thing I noticed wasn't the lights or the smell of cinnamon. It was the table. My seat was gone. Not moved, not saved for later, gone. The lemon pie I'd baked still steamed in my hands as I stood there staring at 6 plates gleaming under the chandelier. One of them sat neatly where mine had always been. Mom smiled like nothing had shifted. "It's just immediate family this year," she said, sliding a plate in front of my sister's fiancé. Her tone was light, practiced, final, the kind of tone that left no space for questions. The room went quiet inside my head, the kind of quiet snow makes when it swallows every sound. I set the pie down, smiled back, and thought, if family is about belonging, then what happens when they quietly vote you out? Mom always said Christmas was about tradition. The garland on the banister, the chipped snowman mugs, Bing Crosby crooning from the same old speaker. Everything was there. Every detail perfect, every corner preserved. Everything except the one thing missing. Me. I lingered in the doorway, pretending to brush snow from my coat while their laughter filled the room. Grace, my sister, was glowing in that red sweater I'd given her last year. Brent, her fiancé, laughed too loudly at one of Dad's jokes, the kind of deep, confident laugh that takes up space and demands approval. And Mom hovered near the stove, orchestrating every movement like a stage manager who already knew the ending. "Do you need help with the table?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She didn't look up. "We're all set, sweetheart. It's just immediate family this year." The words landed soft, but they cut deep. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even cold. She was just certain. And somehow that certainty hurt worse than anger ever could. I glanced at the table again. 6 plates. Mom, Dad, Grace, Brent, Uncle Neil, and Karen, his new girlfriend of 3 months. A family conveniently extended where it benefited others, quietly trimmed where it didn't. My name card was gone, my seat filled, my existence folded away like a napkin they no longer needed. Grace looked up then, her smile flickering. "I didn't know I thought you were coming later." "Yeah," I said softly. "I guess I should have called ahead." No one corrected me. For a moment, I thought about pulling out a folding chair, the same way I used to when cousins overflowed the room. But something inside me stopped. Not anger, just clarity. I suddenly saw every year for what it was. All the times I'd been the quiet backbone of this family. The one who sent money when bills stacked too high. The one who fixed things before anyone admitted they were broken. Rent for Grace when she was between jobs. Repairs for the lake house Dad refused to admit needed work. Grocery cards. Streaming accounts. Birthdays covered. Crises patched. I thought all that meant I belonged. That contribution equaled connection. But watching Mom set that final plate in front of Brent, I understood. It had never been about gratitude. It had been about convenience. I wasn't family. I was funding. Mom wiped her hands on a towel and called everyone to the table, her voice warm again. Practiced, perfect. The kind of warmth that makes outsiders feel safe. I waited a beat, hoping someone would notice I hadn't sat down. No one did. So I smiled, adjusted my scarf, and said, "You guys start without me." Mom nodded like I'd confirmed her plan. "We'll save you some pie," she said. I walked out before she remembered that the pie was mine. The cold hit harder than I expected. Snowflakes clung to my hair, melting down my collar as I made my way to the car. Behind me, the house glowed soft and golden, like a postcard, perfect, distant, and false. Through the frosted window, I could see Grace raise her glass, Brent saying something that made everyone laugh. Mom smiled, proud and peaceful. From the outside, it looked like a moment worth framing. Inside, it was the quietest betrayal I'd ever witnessed. I sat behind the wheel, the pie on the passenger seat, and watched my breath cloud the air. The radio hummed low. Bing Crosby, of course. "I'll be home for Christmas." The irony almost made me laugh. Almost. I thought about the last few years, about how every problem in that house somehow ended up on my screen. Grace's rent payment, Mom's electric bill, Dad's temporary loan for the lake house repairs. None of them ever asked outright. They just hinted, side-weighted. And I always filled in the silence with money because that's what you do when you love people, right? You make things easier. But love, I realized, had become a transaction in our family, and I was the only one still paying. I could picture the spreadsheet on my laptop, the one where I tracked my monthly expenses. Under family, the numbers never stopped climbing. Grocery card subscriptions, one-time emergencies that somehow happened monthly. I told myself it was normal, that it was love. But sitting there in the dark, I finally saw it for what it was, maintenance. I've been maintaining their comfort at the cost of my own. The headlights from another car passed over me, and for a second I saw my reflection in the window. Eyes tired, jaw tight, pea-untouched. I wasn't angry yet. Anger would have been too easy. What I felt was quieter, heavier, like a balance shifting. I remembered something Moments told me when I was 16. Grace needs more attention. You're stronger, Adele. Back then I believed her. I thought strength meant giving more, needing less. But strength without boundaries isn't strength, it's servitude. A knock on the glass pulled me back. A kid from next door waved awkwardly, then gestured at the snow piling up on the driveway. I nodded and turned the ignition. The car heater whirred to life, filling the silence with its steady hum. As I backed out, I caught one last glimpse of the house. My mother leaning close to Brent, laughing at something he said. Her hand on his shoulder, proud and possessive. She never looked that way at me. The snow thickened as I pulled onto the main road. The wipers kept rhythm slow and steady, marking time like a metronome. People say silence keeps peace, but in my family, silence was how you disappeared. That night I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just drove home and made a quiet promise. Never again would I buy my place at that table. When I got back to my apartment, it was midnight. The kind of buffalo cold that seeps through walls and lingers in your bones. I set the lemon pie on the counter, still untouched, and stood there a moment, coat half off, shoes still wet. The silence felt honest. No forced laughter, no background music trying to make everything seem fine. Just the low hum of the fridge and the tick of the clock above it. I poured a glass of water and stared at the reflection in the window. Tired eyes, red nose, a woman who looked like she'd finally run out of pretending. My phone buzzed. Mom, then Grace, then Dad. 32 messages stacked one after another like accusations. I didn't open a single one. Instead, I walked to my desk and opened my laptop. The screen lit up the room, a cold blue glow. My budgeting app was still open from last week. Family expenses. It read like a quiet punchline. Click. The $600 monthly transfer. To Mom and Dad paused. Click Grace's. Car loan payment canceled. Click Prime account. Ended. Click. Netflix logged out of all devices. Each click sounded like a match being struck. Not to burn bridges, but to light my own way out. I didn't leave a note. No announcement, no explanation, just quiet. Boundaries where noise used to live. Another message pinged. Are you seriously doing this over one dinner? I closed the screen. I made coffee instead, even though it was past 1. That smell filled the room, grounding me. I wrapped my hands around the mug and let the warmth settle in. For years, I'd been the backup plan, the helper, the reliable one who never said no. Tonight, I said it without a word. A memory flashed. Mom in the kitchen when I was 12, telling Grace she had a creative spirit, then turning to me. And you, Adele, you're the practical one. You'll keep things running. Back then, I thought it was a compliment. Tonight, it sounded like a life sentence I'd finally served. The phone buzzed again, then the doorbell. I didn't move. Whoever they were, they could stand in the snow a little longer. I sipped my coffee, staring at the pie on the counter. Its crust had cooled, the lemon scent fading into something faint, almost bitter, like sweetness left waiting too long. For the first time, I wasn't panicking about who might need me, who might be disappointed. The apartment felt small but solid mine. I shut off the lights, leaving only the laptop glow. On the screen, the balanced total looked lighter than it ever had. People think revenge is loud, but sometimes it's just the sound of a final click in an empty room. The next morning, the knocking started before sunrise. Sharp, impatient, the kind of knock that expects obedience. I let it go on longer than I should have, watching the shadow shift behind the frosted glass. When I finally opened the door, Mom and Grace were standing there, coats unbuttoned, snow peppering their hair. They looked like they'd run out of patience hours ago. What did you do? Mom asked before she even stepped inside. No hello, no Merry Christmas, just accusation. I leaned against the frame. Good morning to you too. Her voice was tight. Why didn't the money go through? My grocery card got declined. Grace can't make her car payment. You canceled Prime. You're being cruel. I studied her face. The same face that used to check my forehead for fevers, now flushed with outrage instead of worry. Cruel, I said quietly. For paying for myself instead of everyone else. You weren't uninvited, she snapped. It was just a smaller dinner with a plate for Brent, I said. He's part of Grace's future, she replied, folding her arms. We didn't think you'd make a big deal out of it. Then she said it the line that cut deeper than anything that came before. You have no husband, no kids, and you make good money. It's your responsibility to support this family while Grace is starting her life. Grace didn't contradict her. She just looked down, her cheeks red. Something in me clicked into place. Quiet, irreversible. For years I'd been trying to fit into Errol they'd already rewritten. They hadn't forgotten my chair. They'd reassigned it. I'm done, I said. Mom blinked, thrown off by how calm it sounded. You're choosing a fight. I'm choosing a boundary, I said. If you hear it as a fight, that's on you. Hermith twisted. Don't twist this into something noble, Adele. You're abandoning your family. No, I said softly. I'm just refusing to keep funding one. The silence after that stretched long enough for the snow to start melting on their coats. Grace tried, voice shaking. Don't make this ugly. It already is, I said. I just stopped pretending it's not. Mom sighed, switching tactics. You'll regret this. One day you'll need us. If that day comes, I said, stepping back. I hope you answer the door. They left without another word, footsteps crunching down the hall. The air felt lighter when it shut behind them. For the next few days, my phone became a battlefield. Dozens of texts, some pleading, some furious, some guilt, wrapped in concern. I muted the group chat, turned off notifications. The quiet was addictive. Then on January 3rd, a message appeared from a number I didn't expect. Brent Callahan. No greeting, no preamble, just a single sentence and an attachment. I don't know if I should send this, but you deserve to hear it. It was an audio file. At first, all I heard was background noise, forks, clinking Christmas music, the scrape of chairs, then voices. Uncle Neil. So, how's the martyr doing? Mom lobbing, probably sulking like we're ruined her wedding day. Grace. She'll get over it. She always does. Dad's voice lower. At least now we can have a holiday without one of her lectures. Karen. She always tries too hard. The gifts, the clothes. It's exhausting. Laughter followed. Then Brent's voice uncertain. You know, she can probably hear all of this through the door. The room went silent on the recording, like guilt had briefly found oxygen. When I tended, I just sat there, phone in my hand, coffee cooling beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The hurt was colder than that clean surgical. A second message from Brent came through. I'm sorry. I didn't know they talked about you like that. I told Grace it was messed up. She got angry. I moved into the house after New Year's, but it's bad. I stared at his words. The irony of the man who'd taken my seat being the only one honest enough to send me the truth wasn't lost on me. For days it treated not to replay that recording. I failed. Every laugh, every cutting word etched itself deeper. But anger, when it stays too long, cools into clarity. So when the next knock came a week later, softer this time, I was ready. Mom again, Grace behind her dark circles under her eyes. The kitchen caught fire, Mom said, voice trembling. It's bad. We need help until insurance clears. I didn't move from the doorway. Is everyone okay? Yes, she said quickly. We just need a little help to get through the month. There it was again. Not thank you, not we're safe, just the ask, always the ask. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out an envelope. Mom's face softened, hopeful, relieved. When she opened it, her expression faltered. Inside was a single $50 bill. What is this supposed to be? She asked. That, I say it, is what my seat at the table was worth. The silence that followed felt like snow before it falls thick. Waiting. Grace whispered. That's not fair. Neither was Christmas, I said. Mom's voice sharpened. You're being spiteful. No, I said calmly. I'm being consistent. I set the envelope on the counter beside a pile of burned recipe cards and turned to leave. You don't have to be like this, Grace called after me. I paused at the door. Like what, cold? I met her eyes. You called me cold when I stopped paying for your heat bill, too. She said nothing. Outside, the wind bit at my face, the air sharp and clean. I walked to my car, each step cutting through the snow like punctuation. At home, I lit a candle, made tea, and sat by the window. The sidey was quiet, the kind of stillness that only comes after a storm. My phone buzzed. Another message from Mom, then Dad. Please, Adele, it is family. Turn the phone face down. Family shouldn't sound like a demand. The next morning, Brent showed up at my door. His eyes were tired, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. I moved out, he said. Couldn't stay there anymore. He pulled out another envelope and handed it to me. Receipts, statements, my name printed neatly at the top of each page. She opened a credit card under your name, he said quietly. About $8,000 in charges. Said you'd understand. That you'd never press charges because you're family. I felt something inside me go still. Not surprise, just confirmation. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it's wrong, he said. And because I couldn't keep pretending. When he left, I spread the papers across my desk. Restaurant bills, hotel stays, a stroller from an upscale boutique, $8,000 of proof. That night, I called the bank, then a lawyer. The process was slow clinical. But with every signature, every verification, I felt lighter. 2 days later, Grace texted, "You don't have to make this worse." The next day, Mom called. We don't call the police on family, but we should, I thought, because silence had protected them long enough. When the police reached out to Grace, the calls stopped. The noise finally ended. Weeks later, the lawyer confirmed it. My name cleared, account closed. Justice didn't come with fireworks. It came with paperwork and peace. That night, I sat by the same window candle, flickering low, and whispered to myself, "The debt is paid." March came quiet. The snow began to melt along the sidewalks, leaving streaks of gray slush and the smell of thawed air. My phone was still silent. No more calls, no more guilt disguised as love. I thought I'd missed the noise. But peace turned out to have its own rhythm. Coffee brewing radiator, hissing, the occasional sound of my own laughter when something on TV actually made me laugh. One afternoon, my lawyer called. "Everything's finalized," she said. "The account's been cleared, and the bank issued an apology for the delay." After we hung up, I just sat there for a while, listening to nothing. It was strange realizing that after months of tension, there was no next crisis waiting to unfold. I poured a cup of coffee, the smell filling the apartment, and looked out the window. The city was still pale sunlight catching on the puddles where snow used to be. My phone buzzed once a voicemail. Dad. I hesitated, thumb hovering, then pressed play. His voice was softer than I remembered. "Hey, sweetheart. I don't know if you'll listen to this, but I need to say it anyway. You were right. We treated you like a safety net, and when you finally stepped away, the whole house fell. Your mom's not ready to admit it. And Grace, well, she's Grace, but I see it now. We built a family that only made noise when it needed something. I'm sorry. I hope someday you'll talk to us again. Not for money, just to talk." The message ended with silence, then a faint sound of him, exhaling like relief and regret, tangled together. I didn't cry. I just smiled faintly, saving the voicemail, not to play it, but to keep proof that some truths finally land. Then I opened my notey book, the one where I'd written every dollar, every favor, every line of quiet generosity, and added one last entry. The debt is paid. When I closed the cover, the sound felt final, like the click of a lock. Outside, the snow was gone. That evening, I washed the pie dish that had sat untouched since Christmas and slid it back into the cupboard. The kitchen smelled faintly of lemon and coffee, the way peace sometimes smells when it finally has room to breathe. I sat by the window with a mug of tea, watching the last patches of snow dissolve into the streetlights. For years, I thought family meant endurance. Now I know it means choice. I came home for Christmas once, but I found something better than a seat at their table. My own peace. If you've ever been left standing where your chair should have been, tell me in the comments. You're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe for the next